Hey there! Do you really want to know how graphic designers actually come up with such stunning graphic design work? In my previous video, I showed you how graphic designers actually use the elements of graphic design to come up with such stunning work, but I didn't take you through the principles they use to work with these elements in order to come up with such good and effective design. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you the principles that different graphic designers actually use to come up with such stunning work. So watch until the end. I have a bonus principle that I'm going to be giving you. Hello guys, this is Rogers from Flags Media, where I hope you take such a journey as a self-taught graphic designer, web designer, or UX designer. In this video, I'm going to be taking you through the principles of graphic design. There are 12 principles of graphic design, and at the end of this video, I'm going to be giving you an extra principle that you can use to make sure that your work is more effective. So guys, let's jump right in. So guys, first and foremost, what are the principles of graphic design? The principles of graphic design are what guide the elements of graphic design. So they guide a graphic designer on how to use the elements of graphic design. So if at all you watched my previous video that was taking you through how you can understand the elements of graphic design, then you might be asking yourself, how can I use these elements? How can I use lines? How can I use shapes? How can I use the color, form, value, and all these other elements? How you can use them is through using the principles of graphic design that are going to show you or guide you on how to use these elements. The first principle I want to talk about today is emphasis. One of the things you have to keep at the back of your mind is that these principles actually mean what they say. For example, if at all I'm to talk about emphasis, emphasis in graphic design just means emphasizing a specific element or a bunch of elements to make sure that you communicate effectively. Now, emphasis is a strategy to get the viewer's attention to a specific design element. If at all you would want to call for a viewer's attention to a specific element, you have to make sure that you emphasize that element. If it's shape, you have to make sure that the shape is huge. If it's a line, you have to make sure that that line is either bold or maybe curvy or maybe zigzag, etc. But the point is you have to make sure that it stands out from the rest of the other elements. For example, in this design right here, you'll find out that this poster of this avatar, since this avatar is the main character in this movie, you'll find out that the image of this avatar stands out more than the text itself. So this image actually calls for more attention than any other element in this movie poster. You'll find out that most designers actually use images to always stand out more than the text that they use. And this technique of making images stand out is actually used on most posters of either movies or maybe cartoons or even animations. So the designers of these graphic design posters make sure that the main characters in these movies actually stand out more than any other character on these posters. So emphasis is something that you can either achieve by either using a specific color or maybe a specific shape in your specific design. So emphasis is all about emphasizing a specific element in your graphic design. As a graphic designer, keep it at the back of your mind that you always have to emphasize specific elements in order to communicate something in your graphic design. So emphasis is very crucial, and you should keep it at the back of your mind that very many graphic designers use these different elements to bring the point home. So always use emphasis if at all you'd want to communicate something and make it stand out from all other elements in your graphic design. If at all you watched my previous video, I used this example, and in this example you'll find out that this one with this apple stands out more than any other element because it's what the viewer is being told by the graphic designer to look out for in the design. So emphasis is something that you would want your viewers to always see once they look at your design at first glance. So guys, moving on, the next point is balance. Now, in your graphic design, you have to make sure that you balance all these other elements: shape, line, color, the tone, the value, the images. You have to make sure that there is a balance between all of these elements. And as a graphic designer, you have to keep it at the back of your mind that balancing something is really crucial, and that very many graphic designers actually balance the elements they use. Now, once you don't balance the elements you use in your graphic design, you'll find out that some elements will actually stand out more than other elements, and the viewer will actually be confused. So as a graphic designer, you either have to balance the images, the text, the color, the shape, the lines in your graphic design, so that one element is not really competing for attention with other elements. So you have to make sure that you balance everything in your graphic design so that you communicate effectively. Most graphic designers will always balance the color and the text that they're using in order to match all of these things. Now, balance also actually enables you to make sure that you have equal weight in your graphic design. There are actually two types of balance in graphic design: the symmetrical balance and asymmetrical balance. Symmetrical means that the things that will be on the left of your graphic design will actually be equal to the things on the right of your graphic design. Now, there are other graphic designs that have got asymmetrical balance. That is when the things on the left are not actually equal to the things on the right. Now, you'll find out that in most cases, designs that are actually asymmetrical actually stand out more than other designs. For example, you find out that this design it has got asymmetrical balance, and you'll find out that the other designs where the user is using asymmetrical balance to come up with their work. So guys, make sure that your work is well balanced and that the elements are not competing for attention, or maybe some of them are out of balance and they are sliding off the page. And that is actually one of the ways you can actually get to know that a specific design is not well balanced, when most of its elements, for example, color, shape, or line, actually feel like as though they are getting off of the canvas of that specific graphic design. So guys, keep it at the back of your mind that your work has to be balanced. Now guys, moving on, the next point is contrast. Now, just like the word sounds, you have to contrast. You can either contrast using color or shape. Very many graphic designers actually contrast their work. There's something I showed you right here, where this design of this poster actually contrasted this dark blue with this red. So you'll find out that sometimes when you contrast something, you emphasize it. And the other thing you have to note out is that these graphic design principles actually relate to each other, and they support each other together with the elements in order to come up with effective design. So you'll find out that balance can work together with emphasis in order to come up with contrast. For example, in this image right here, you'll find out that the designer used both balance and emphasis to come up with this contrast. I think you can see all these principles are relating to each other. Even the elements in my previous video, I told you they relate to each other. You can't just use one element in your graphic design and you think it will actually be effective. You have to use multiple principles and multiple elements to come up with effective design. So guys, make sure that you use the contrast in terms of the color and the shape and the images that you're using in order to come up with effective communication. Now, if you didn't watch my previous video, please check the description and you'll get a link to that video that is going to give you a very good understanding of what the elements of graphic design are. Then you can come back to this video and then watch the principles, and then you can begin connecting the dots. So guys, don't forget, contrast is really crucial, and that emphasis and balance can help you come up with very good contrast in your graphic design, and then you will be able to communicate effectively. So the next point is repetition. Now, repetition is when you use one specific graphic design element over and over again in your graphic design. Now, repetition sometimes actually calls for attention, because when you repeat something over and over again, this actually means that you want to call for someone's attention. You want them to realize that this is really crucial in the design and that they should look out for it. For example, this design for Nike right here, there's this slogan of Nike. The designer of this poster right here made sure that he repeats different letters. So letters actually fall under type, which is an element of graphic design. Again, if you didn't watch my video, the link is in the description. You can go and watch my video explaining the elements of graphic design, and you will see how type is being used. So this designer right here made sure that he repeats these specific letters, which is T, this O, there's this T also, to make sure that they call for more attention. There are other ways you can use repeated text, or maybe shapes, or maybe lines to communicate something in your graphic design. So guys, keep it at the back of your mind that you find yourself repeating specific elements of graphic design in your work in order to make it more effective. So as a graphic designer, keep it at the back of your mind that repetition has to be balanced, or maybe you can emphasize it, or maybe you can contrast it. Now, I think you can see the principles I talked about previously in my previous slides are actually connecting with this principle of repetition. So as a graphic designer, you'll find out that you will either use one element. Sometimes most individuals actually use more than one element, which is okay. And you'll find out that they actually come up with very stunning graphic designs. So guys, make sure that you repeat the elements of graphic design depending on what you're communicating, and keep it at the back of your mind that once you repeat shapes excessively in your graphic design, you might find out that you're going to fail, because this will call for clutter. So shouldn't clutter your graphic designs, but make sure that they are more effective. So guys, moving on, the next point is proportion. Now you have to make sure that the elements you use in your graphic design, the shapes, the lines, the color, the value, all of these elements have to be proportional in your graphic design. Now, proportionality can come in form of the size that you're using for these elements. You can actually make sure that the size of the elements you're using are proportional, and that they are well balanced in your graphic design. So if at all you use shapes, lines, color here and there, and they are not proportional to what you're trying to communicate, then you find out that your graphic design won't come out very well. Proportionality can actually be achieved through balance and emphasis, and maybe plus contrast. I think you can see all these elements actually relating to each other. And as a graphic designer, if at all you can relate these elements and principles to each other, then you're going to come up with stunning graphic designs at the end. So guys, for example, you'll find out that this poster right here has got two cups that are proportional, and that the colors being used are contrasting each other, and that these two images are proportional, and that they are balanced. So I think you can see, if at all you can understand how these elements affect each other and the principles, then you're going to come up with stunning graphic designs here and there. So keep it at the back of your mind that none of these principles stands alone. They will always comply each other, and they will always help each other in order to make the elements that you're designing stand out in your graphic design. So guys, moving ahead, the other point is movement. Now, most individuals actually think graphic design doesn't have movement, or you can't perceive what movement is in graphic design. Movement can be actually perceived through elements when they are taking a specific direction. Movement is how the viewer's eye is going to travel through your specific design. Now, there are actually other graphic designers that have achieved movement by using the words that actually communicate what they mean. For example, in this graphic design, there's this word of motion. But the graphic design has made sure that this design actually communicates what it is trying to sound like. So you can actually find graphic designers using movement to communicate by using words like this, and then others actually use it together with balance to make sure that the designs they are coming up with are proportional. So as a graphic designer, keep it at the back of your mind that the viewer has to travel through your graphic design work. If at all I can't move through the work and I see how far my eyes can go, then that work is going to be flat. And flat things are not actually very good to look at in graphic design. Make sure that your designs have got some depth in them. Depth is one of the ways that you can tell that a specific design has got movement. Some designers actually achieve this by using illustrations they can show. For example, in this graphic design right here, the designer actually used this squiggy clock to show that time is always moving. Time is not still, it's always moving. So as a graphic designer, you have to add movement in your graphic design, and you have to make sure that your graphic design is not still. You can also use shapes to imply movement, plus text, just like I showed you. So guys, keep it at the back of your mind that movement is really crucial, and that viewers will always need it to navigate your work here and there. So as a graphics designer, movement is always going to help you out while coming up with your work. So guys, moving on. The next point I want to talk about is hierarchy. Now, you'll find out that you can't come up with a very stunning graphic design if at all elements are actually given the same size, or maybe given the same emphasis and contrast and balance. You have to make sure that there has to be elements that are standing out in your graphic design as compared to other elements. For example, in this design right here for this poster, you'll find out that there is some hierarchy in this graphic design right here. The image is taking up a lot of space as compared to the text and these other names of these actors right here. So hierarchy is very good, and it gives you a sense of importance of the elements within a design. Hierarchy is really important. For example, this design right here, it shows you that this design right here, this vector image right here, has got more importance than these other text right here. So you'll find out that you'll have to play with other elements of graphic design and make sure that you figure out which element is more important than other elements in this graphic design. Now, if at all you figure out that element, then you can make it stand out in your graphic design. So guys, that is hierarchy. Hierarchy is about importance, making sure that the things that you want your viewers to see first are actually shown first, and they have got more emphasis, more contrast, and that they're well balanced and that they're well proportional in your graphic design. So guys, don't forget that these things actually relate to each other, and so many graphic designers underlook this power of these principles of graphic design. You have to make sure that you keep it at the back of your mind that these things relate to each other, and the trick is figuring out how they actually work with each other. And in this video, I'm actually giving you that, and by the end, you'll actually get to know how these principles actually work together. Moving ahead, the other point is rhythm. Now you have to make sure that the elements you're using in your graphic design actually rhyme. Now you've actually had this when it comes to songs and songwriting. You'll actually hear some people saying that that musician's song is not actually rhyming. This actually means that the words he's using in his song are not actually relating to each other, or they don't have any relationship. to each other. So as a graphic designer, you have to make sure that the elements you're going to use in your graphic design actually relate to each other. There has to be a relationship. There has to be that rhythm. And you'll find out that there is either regular rhythm or irregular rhythm. And both of these actually help you, because you'll find out that with the regular rhythm, it might actually communicate calmness, and with the irregular rhythm within your graphic design can actually communicate excitement. Now, you'll find out that most graphic designers actually use specific elements in their graphic design to show that there is rhythm within the designs that they are trying to actually come up with. For example, in this design right here for this SketchUp, you find out that the designer used at most 3 colors, and these colors are actually rhyming with the bottle of the ketchup and the background of the ketchup together with the mayonnaise and the fries. So there is that rhythm between what the ketchup is being used for in this graphic design. So you find out that everything in this graphic design is rhyming, because first of all, the graphic design is using similar colors, and that they have played around with these colors depending on what they are trying to communicate. So the colors are actually rhyming with the message being communicated. So guys, these words, the principles of graphic design, actually mean what they say. Rhythm is about rhyming. You have to have a flow in your graphic design. There has to be a flow, a movement that the viewer is going to follow, and these should actually be relating to each other. The elements that you're using in your graphic design have to relate to each other. For example, this other graphic design, the designer is actually using this chicken that has got this color that relates to the background, and that also relates to this chili. Now, this actually also relates to the text itself. So there is this rhythm in this graphic design because the elements that the graphic designer used are rhyming. So you also find out that in this specific graphic design, there are other principles like balance, proportionality, contrast of color, and emphasis, because the emphasis is on this spicy chicken. So guys, that is it when it comes to rhythm. So guys, moving ahead, the other point I want to talk about today is patterns. Now, patterns are actually very crucial, and you'll find out that patterns actually give your graphic design some texture and feel to what you're trying to communicate. I showed you this poster right here that has got these different patterns that were created using text. Now I think you can see you can use the elements of graphic design to come up with specific patterns in your graphic design. I also showed you this graphic design that uses these patterns that are made of shapes. So this vector image right here uses these shapes to come up with a specific pattern. Now, even on this fruit right here, I think I don't know which fruit I don't know which fruit this was, but I think it could have been a pumpkin. But nevertheless, the graphic designer uses these patterns to come up with a specific texture in his graphic design. Now you'll find out that other graphic designers actually use other elements to come up with a specific pattern in their graphic designs. Now, graphic designers actually have to make their work interesting. In my previous videos of how to become a graphic designer and how to become a creative graphic designer, I told you that you have to be a creative graphic designer, and creativity is actually gotten by understanding these principles and knowing how to use them in order to play with the elements of graphic design. So as a graphic designer, keep it at the back of your mind that you have to come and play with these principles together, the elements, to become more creative in your graphic design. So guys, don't forget patterns, because patterns also prevent designs from becoming monotonous and boring. So guys, keep it at the back of your mind that you always use patterns here and there. So the next point is unity. Now, you have to keep it at the back of your mind that there has to be unity. If at all something is united, then it is going to communicate more and it's going to have more sense of communication than something that is not united. Remember, divided we fall, united we stand. So there are quite a lot of graphic designs. All of these graphic designs have been taking you through. There is a little bit of unity within all of these graphics designs I've been showing you. Unity represents togetherness. Unity represents the wholeness of your graphic design. Look at it as a whole. Don't look at it in bits, because when you look at it in bits, then you are not actually implying unity in your graphic design. So as a graphic designer, keep it at the back of your mind that all of these elements have to work together in unity to come up with effective communication. So guys, keep it at the back of your mind that you have to use unity, and unity is not something that you can just get in your hand and work with it. It's an end result of your graphic design. It's how your elements in your graphic design are going to work together in order to come up with the intended message of that graphic design. The next point is harmony. Harmony is a sense of cohesiveness between the elements in a composition. Now, if there isn't that cohesiveness in your graphic design, then you'll find out that most elements won't be in unity with the other elements and they won't harmonize. Harmonizing is making sure that these graphic design elements actually work together in order to make sure that you come up with an effective way of communicating your ideas and the intended message. Now, harmony can also be achieved by using similar colors. For example, this graphic designer right here embraced the tones of brown and black to make sure that these colors actually harmonize together in order to come up with a unified graphic design at the end. Now, the graphic design actually also used text, because you can also see that the text right here matches with this t-shirt right here of this model, and that these colors of the sweater also match with the colors of the background in order to make sure that there is that cohesiveness within these graphic design elements. So guys, don't think that the principles only end on unity. You have to harmonize. Let there be that harmony in your graphic design, because harmony will lead to unity at the end. And harmony cannot be achieved where there's no balance, where there's no proportionality, where there's no contrast, where there's no emphasis. I think you can see all of these things are relating to each other. There's no how you're going to skip any of these principles. That is why you should watch this video until the end. So guys, make sure that you harmonize, have that harmony within you as an individual, and also reflect that harmony within the pieces of work that you're going to always be designing. Then the other point I want to talk about is variety. You have to keep it at the back of your mind that variety actually helps you create visual interest, which will keep your viewers engaged with your design. As a graphic designer, you can't use maybe one shape, or maybe one color, or maybe one typeface, or maybe one line in your graphic design. It won't make that much sense, because graphic designers actually use a variety of either colors, lines, or shapes to come up with an effective way of communicating. I have never seen a single graphic design that only has one color or maybe one typeface. And that only means that that graphic design won't be effective. You have to use a variety of these graphic design elements because they are there for you to use. Don't think someone is going to come and use them for you. You have to use these elements to the fullest. Now, guys, you have to make sure that the variety of elements you use are on purpose. Don't just come up with any specific elements and you just throw them in your design, and you just use a variety of squares, rectangles, lines. And since Roger said that we have to use a variety, then you throw in all the shapes. Make sure that you use a variety of graphic design elements, but also using them with a specific intention, because design is about intention. Design is a discipline. Design is about effective communication, especially when it comes to graphic design. Don't forget that, keep it at the back of your mind, that you have to use a variety. Use a variety of shapes, use a variety of colors, use a variety of lines, use a variety of forms, use a variety of lines in order to communicate effectively. So guys, moving on, the last point, my bonus point I want to give you guys is space. I talked about it in my previous video as an element. Now, this shouldn't actually confuse you because you can actually either use space as an element or as a principle. Positive space is what your design is actually, or what your elements of interest are occupying in your graphic design. Negative space, on the other hand, is this other space that is not being occupied by any other elements in your graphic design. Now, that is actually what makes it an element, because it also actually occupies space. So space occupies space. So guys, don't ignore space, because space actually helps you balance out your graphic design elements, and it also enables you to make sure that you emphasize specific things in your graphic design, and also to come up with your intended message. The last thing I want to talk about is you have to keep it at the back of your mind that these principles don't work alone. You can't just emphasize in a specific graphic design, or maybe make sure that you're using balance alone, or variety, or emphasis. No, you can use all of these principles in your graphic design in order to make sure that you are directing the elements of graphic design in the right direction in order to be an effective communicator. Because as a graphic designer, you are supposed to be an effective communicator, and that graphic design is all about effective communication. So guys, keep it at the back of your mind that the elements of graphic design are the building blocks of graphic design, and that the principles guide the elements of graphic design. And that is how you can come up with effective communication. Next up, I'm going to be making a video of how to get started with Adobe Illustrator. So guys, that was it. I hope you liked this video. Make sure that you give this video a thumbs up, share it with your friends so they can also get to know the principles of graphic design. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out on any information, and that is through turning on the bell notification.